We have a problem then in terms of integrating those areas. And this is a slide taken from a statement in the New England Journal of Medicine. I believe it was that, yes, in last June. And it's an important statement because who is making the statement? The commissioner from the FDA and the chairman from NIH. And also the statement that is made, and the statement that is made pressing for individualized, personalized medicine, and we know that personalized medicine will be a reality only when you can merge those diagnostic and therapeutic issues in a converging manner. So this is really at the forefront of the discussion, in my view, for the coming period. And of course, coming from the science, and a bit of science in these slides, is that what we want to see also for the future. This is a paper with about a year already, published by a Japanese group. And when I say that I don't want to see quantum dots injected in mice or in patients, I say that because the best quantum dots we have currently in terms of research are cadmium-selenium quantum dots. And cadmium-selenium quantum dots can be very toxic, and mostly in terms of the renal toxicity because of the permutation between with a proton pump on the kidney cells between cadmium and manganese. And this is a huge problem. But this is what would be lovely to see in a clinical setting. This is an animal model using quantum dots, is to trace the metastasization process, looking how metastases are formed and evolved in a body. This is an animal model done by, I think it was the University of Tokyo, I'm not sure about that, but it was a year ago, published a year ago already, and this is something that should be one of the target objectives for the future, not only to make the diagnostics, but also to trace the evolution of the disease during clinical management, and this is a very relevant topic for the future, and how are we going to regulate, again, these products in that frame. So you heard a lot already about regulation coming from the European Medicines Agency, and we had the example from AFSAPS. I'm not going to go on to that. Just to highlight that in Europe, we have a major standard for regulation separating therapeutics from imaging and diagnostics, and in fact, imaging in vivo imaging agents are currently classified as medicinal products, and I know that for some of you this is a problem because we had this discussion 1 year ago on the remit of Nanomedtv that was also participated by VDI, and we heard about the problems that the companies coming, I would say, from the hardware and software sector, like GE and other companies have, and the companies that develop the products from the other sector have in terms of making the convergence. Sorry, and Philips also, Hans, you should have pointed that. The key factors for design of those products in respect to specific medical use, I have here a non-exhaustive list. This might be useful for the discussion, and it would be useful for what I'm going to show you after, just after, is that the issues coming from that slide are mostly related to material science, to formulation technologies, translational research, clinical development, and market access. And market access, we should not forget it. It's not enough in Europe to have a product approved by the European Medicines Agency or a national agency, depending on the product on therapeutic indication. In almost all member states, you still have then a pharmacoeconomic assessment, most of the time done by a health technology assessment agency or national body. And this is again another barrier for innovation to go to the market in due time and to be used for patients. So the current and future regulatory changes in my view are related to combination therapy, to potential theranostic approaches, and also coming up the follow-on products. And on the follow-on products, I'm not going to go extensively on that one, just to give you an example with two recent publications, one coming from a researchers group related to the BfArM, the German regulatory agency for new chemical entities and also for medical devices, and the other one coming from a clinical group published on Arzneimittelforschung, and both of them dealing with the differences when you look at iron oxide particles, nanoparticles used for iron replacement therapy, and most of the cases are in oncology patients, that you have differences related to the coating of the particles and also differences related to the so-called generic products or follow-on products, some of which are already on the market on some member states in Europe. And you have here a major issue, which is a scientific and clinical issue in terms of the safety of those particles. So a year ago, I made statements in front of the OECD Working Party on Nanotechnology when we met in Vienna, And I still believe they are true today. And I would say, just to refer to one of the comments from the chair of the European Technology Platform, that when I say that we don't need major changes on the regulatory environment, I'm not taking the conservative approach. I'm taking the approach that the current medicinal products regulatory system is an evolving system, and nanopharmaceuticals should evolve with that system, not separated from that system. So the way we translate is very critical. And how to move in a global environment, I think that we need international collaboration. We had an example from Marisa's presentation in terms of the international group. There's also a number of issues related to nanomedicine, looking at biomarkers and what was done already, and some of the issues currently under development on IMEI. Finally, my take-home message, and I would say eventually for the discussion, restart, remember the title, why? I don't see why to restart, but I see why we do not need to do it from zero once again. And we do not need to restart from zero the discussion on regulation of medicinal products at the nanoscale or nanopharmaceuticals. The experience of 30 years of clinical use and 20 years of marketing authorization for liposomes leads the way for a proven and strong regulatory pathway for approval, with quality, safety, and efficacy requirements being adequately addressed and fulfilled. The nature of new materials, as always with other non-nanomedicinal products, should trigger adequate toxicological studies, learning with previous experience on the discussion of other medicinal products at the nanoscale already approved. Take into account that the basis for risk assessment, central in the environmental risk evaluation, should not be confused with the needs for risk management and risk-benefit management at the center of the medicines regulation for decades. And I know this is a very controversial issue right now in the toxicology community. The differences of the nanoscale should be dealt within the specific therapeutic indication, administration route, and posology, looking also at differences in pharmacokinetics, but also on the pharmacodynamics issue. I can give you a very short example. If you take siRNAs, and the delivery systems for siRNAs are liposomal-based products or lipidic products, but also polymeric nanoparticles, you can have 100% of the administered dose on the target cell at the tumor. But if you have the 100% of that dose at the endosomal compartment, you'll have zero pharmacological effect, because the nucleic acids will be completely destroyed in that very highly enzymatic environment, and they will never reach the cytosol to do the pharmacological effect they are supposed to. So a new regulatory frame should be considered for future combined products, integrating diagnostics and therapeutic functions, theranostics, and the revision of current situation for in vivo imaging agents is needed. And this is my takeaway discussion message. And finally, just to make you more comfortable after a day of a session, this is a picture taken for a building that was inaugurated 2 weeks ago. The crisis is not attacking everybody, thank God. And this was a new building inaugurated in Houston, dedicated to research, medical research, with a department on nanomedicine and biomedical engineering. And the entry of that is the so-called Da Vinci Dialogo, which mixes a number of art fixtures coming from the nanotechnology sector and looking at an approach like Leonardo da Vinci did in his drawings a couple of 100 years ago. And I think this is relevant when we talk about Renaissance and Europe, and we are at Milano doing that. Thank you very much.